Hello, today I'm going to talk about the uncanny in film, and I'm going to focus on the work of David Lynch and also the film Picnic at Hanging Rock by Peter Weir. But I also mention a few others, and we'll kind of get deep into what the uncanny is, because it's one of my favorite kind of ideas, let's say. If you want to like and subscribe, I would appreciate that. You can hit the bell for notifications. It really helps me get more exposure, so I would appreciate it. We're going to start with Sigmund Freud, because he kind of dismantles it quite well. And it's basically this: the uncanny is both the familiar and the foreign at the same time. It's a resulting kind of feeling of discomfort, and it arouses dread, as well as kind of this creeping horror. And there are usually kind of several different sort of symbolic tropes in this case. One is the dream. And in many films and books, the dream kind of invades the reality in these kind of films. The home is also a trope, and the home can also be kind of a force, like in the Fall of the House of Usher would be an example of that. And then the double, like the doppelganger, or the kind of doubled self, which is in many of these. Some other things that are examined in these kind of films are paradoxes and kind of alien presence, obviously mystery, sort of an unsolvable lingering on, and almost like a puzzle kind of quality. And I would say that's where David Lynch excels. If you don't know David Lynch, he is an excellent filmmaker. In fact, I can't even think of one film of his I don't like. There are some I like more than others, but even Dune I'm a fan of, even though a lot of people are not. But I'm going to focus on a few things here in his work as we talk about this. So the first, and probably his most famous, is Mulholland Drive, and it explores the dark and mysterious underbelly of Hollywood through the intertwined lives of two women. It came out in 2001. Now, Mulholland Drive is kind of a I'm not going to say the word I was thinking. It's mind-bending, let's say. And even to this day, I still don't quite know what to make of it. And that's the beauty of this film. And it definitely embraces the uncanny, specifically the doppelganger kind of trope. The beauty of these kind of films, and especially David Lynch, is that they're so open to interpretation. In the case of Mulholland Drive, there are lots of theories about, what actually happened, ranging from that she murdered her girlfriend, but then some people think that, I guess there's spoilers here, that she murdered herself, or that she murdered part of herself, or there's so many different kind of interpretations you can put into this movie. But another one of his works, I think, really, it was almost a kind of participation, would be the third season of Twin Peaks. Now, the first two seasons he was also involved with, mostly the first season. He kind of bowed out during the second season. And I'm not going to get into all the history of Twin Peaks, but if you haven't seen Twin Peaks, I think you need to see it immediately. Now, Twin Peaks is filled with all kinds of uncanny imagery and ideas, and especially the third season. I remember when I was watching the third season, which actually happened 25 years later from the second season, which was quite interesting. Because that's kind of a thing in the original two seasons. It's like, I'll see you in 25 years, and then you do. Now, there, each week it came out, it was an experience, let's say, of an unfolding of the uncanny to such a degree that you're like hungered for the next piece of the puzzle, but every piece of the puzzle made it almost harder to get your head around where this was going. Now, the original was way more linear, I think, but it was on network TV, so it had to be. There were moments of the uncanny in it, especially the Pink Room. In the return, in the third season, if anything, it was kind of a high point in his career, I think, because it's kind of the culmination of all the different kind of ideas that he's sort of examined over the years about identity, which is another uncanny trope, and the loss of identity, or what is identity. So in that way, I would say the third season is a masterpiece of the uncanny. And at the end, I'm not going to give away the ending, but yeah, that's basically textbook uncanny ending. And, you know, a lot of his other films like Inland Empire, similar, Blue Velvet. Blue Velvet's a little more linear, but it does have moments where you're like, what is going on here? It's more of a noir, let's say, which Mulholland Drive also has elements of noir in it, and also Lost Highway. But Lost Highway is similar in terms of how the story shifts. There's a moment where it shifts, and, you know, again, like Mulholland Drive, there's so many interpretations of what he was going for here. And I think that's the beauty of this kind of artistic style, is that it's surreal, let's say, but it demands thought. So once you're done with it, you kind of can't stop thinking about it. And that's where I want to mention Picnic at Hanging Rock, because I saw this a while back and it really, really hit me hard. I guess I saw it a few months ago. So it's a 1975 Australian mystery drama film directed by Peter Weir, adapted from the 1967 novel of the same name by Joan Lindsay. The story revolves around the mysterious disappearance of several schoolgirls and their teacher. This movie blew me away, and by today's standards, I guess it could be considered slow, but that's kind of part of the I want to say juiciness of the movie. That's the only adjective I can think to describe it, but it's juicy and luscious, and quite scary. Especially, you know, in the news, you see a lot of people go missing all the time, and you kind of just wonder, like, what actually happened, you know? And that's basically what the plot of this movie is these, I mean, it's not a spoiler because it says in the synopsis, but they basically disappear and nobody knows what happens to them. And through his filmmaking style, you almost wonder, is it supernatural, or is it kind of like some mystical thing, or a break in reality? You're not really sure, and that's the beauty of it. It's kind of a paradox, because they don't find them. Well, I don't want to say too much about it, but they don't. I'll just say that the answer is never, there's no answer to the question. But there's definitely some closure, but not really. And that's why the movie sticks with you, is that there just is this lingering question. And I mean, I think it's done masterfully, and the music in the movie is perfect too for what it is, and the performances. And I'll say this, the cinematography really influenced another movie that I think delves into the uncanny, and that's The Virgin Suicides from 1999, and that's directed by Sofia Coppola. And it revolves around the lives of these sisters. One of them commits suicide, and then it's sort of the fallout of that that experience in suburban life, and how these boys kind of witness the dismantling of their family. And I think a lot of the cinematography borrows heavily from Picnic at Hanging Rock, but there is this kind of uncanny element in the movie, especially with the kind of voiceover that's going on, and nobody really knows why they do it. I mean, that's the title, The Virgin Suicides, so it's not a spoiler, but it again has this feeling of like, wow, like this is just, it's like heavy and there's no answer, you know. A few other films that address this, I think a good one is Enemy, and that's a 2013 thriller by Denis Villeneuve, based on the novel The Double by Jose Saramago. It follows this character that has a doppelganger, again, like Mulholland Drive. And there's this kind of unraveling mystery behind their identical appearances. And the ending is just crazy. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And there's all kinds of interpretations about what that means. And again, it just kind of lets you go and lets you drift off, and you have to kind of sort it out yourself. One other last film I want to mention before I mention a Japanese film is Under the Skin, 2013, directed by Jonathan Glazer, and it's kind of loosely based on a novel by Michelle Faber. And it's got Scarlett Johansson in it, and she plays an alien, and she kind of assumes the appearance of this woman. Part of the uncanny in this film is the breakdown between reality of her seductions of these men, and you're not sure, like, it's very stylistic in how they kind of enter her world, let's say, and then they get kind of assimilated with her, like sucked into her. You know, it's interesting, and it definitely leaves you wondering what was going on here. And the last one I'm going to mention is a Japanese film, and it's actually a Japanese pink film, which means it's kind of like an adult film, from 1964. When I say that, it's not really adult compared to today's standards, but that's kind of what it was lumped into. And it's very similar to David Lynch's work, I think, but it's a film called Daydream. And it's an artist and a woman are in a dentist's waiting room, and when he is given an anesthetic, he begins to imagine a series of scenes in which the woman undergoes various forms of sexual abuse at the hand of the dentist. This movie is not for everybody. I think some people would find it actually quite offensive, but as far as art is concerned, I think it's quite brilliant. Especially because you're not sure if this is real or not real, or it's just in his head. I'm not going to give away the kind of twist, but there's an indication that maybe it was real, but maybe it wasn't. So again, there's this kind of, you know, familiar and foreign, but is it real, is it not real? But it's a pretty brave movie, I think. And, you know, in today's climate, maybe it wouldn't really... people wouldn't appreciate it, let's say. But a lot of art is that way, especially over time. Things change and ideas change, and as a work of art, I think this is a little bit similar to the work of Hans Bellmer. There's a kind of a sexuality to it. It's also similar to the work of H.R. Giger. There's this kind of sexuality and this almost mechanical aspect to it. But a lot of Japanese films have this kind of quality. There's a kind of a darkness to it that I think the West doesn't always have. But yeah, I think it definitely deals with the uncanny, and it's quite interesting. There's a few other novels, if you're interested, that I think fall into this camp. Anything by Haruki Murakami or Franz Kafka, Shirley Jackson, Algernon Blackwood, H.P. Lovecraft, those kind of things. If you're interested in this, they would have it. Maybe even like J.G. Ballard, I guess, would be in there. That's about all I got. If you like Uncanny films and you want to mention any in the in the comments. I'd like to hear, because I'm always on the lookout for ones I haven't seen. And if you have anything to say about the films that I touched upon, or David Lynch's work or anything like that, Picnic at Hanging Rock, whatever you want, just leave a message and I'll try to respond. So yeah, I think that's about all I got for today. Take care.